Hey guys, how's it going? Nova GT here. This week I decided to hop on GT7 because one of the daily races is Laguna Seca for Group 3 cars. And I don't really usually do daily race C because I usually always mess up with strategy. But since it's Laguna Seca and Group 3 cars, I decided to give it a go. And of course, I had to use the Group 3 meta car, the Porsche 911, and of course with my own custom quadrant livery, as you could tell by the GT. So going into the lobby, you can see I already set a time of 124.9. I actually ran it like 2-3 laps. You can see the time is a 119.3, so I'm about 5 seconds off the top time, which is not that good actually. So going into my first attempt after setting the 124.9, I go pretty safe, which is something I usually do during the first runs just to get a feel for like how the car handles around the track. And as you're gonna see in these next few corners for the first lap, I'm not taking them as fast or aggressive as I could be. Like coming into this turn, it's a pretty fast corner, but not really in the Porsche. I definitely could have gone on the power a bit more earlier, especially coming into this one. I'm not on the power as much. I braked maybe a little too hard than I needed to. And especially coming into the corkscrew, I brake a little too earlier than usual, and I don't really get that much great of an exit. Especially coming in here, I'm not on the power as much. I'm not as aggressive on it, and it was 126.0. And going into the next lap, I'm actually not doing that good, but going into this section, I am a little bit more aggressive, which lets me catch up on my ghost, which I am like 2/10 behind. So I am take a bit more space and going into the corkscrew, which gets me ahead of my ghost by a large margin, as I'm like now 6/10, 7/10 up and counting. And going into the penultimate corner, I lose a bit of time, but I get it pretty quickly going into the last one as I go pretty deep, and now coming out of it, I am 1.2 seconds ahead and improving to a 124.7, which is fast enough to set a new lap. And going for the next lap, I go a bit more deeper into the Andretti hairpin, but it gave me a good entrance, but a bad exit. And going into the second turn, I think that was pretty good. It puts me ahead of my ghost, put more time gain. I hit a bit of the sausage curb, but that's fine as I go like half a second up on my ghost now. So going into the fast left-hander, I take just a bit too much sausage curb, and you can see in my delta how much time that actually cost me. And going into the hairpin on the entrance, it doesn't improve, but going on the exit, it improves just by a little. So as you can see, going into the penultimate corner, I am about 5/10 up, and of course I bin it and I try to save it, and next thing you know, I am facing the wrong way, which is pretty frustrating, especially when you're half a second up on your previous best. And the next lap, coming out of the Andretti hairpins, not much better as I almost lose the rear end again, but somehow I managed to stay ahead of my ghost. And despite that blunder coming out of the Andretti hairpin, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm hitting these sectors pretty good. I definitely feel like I'm getting pretty good entrance and exits here, especially coming out of this turn. It wasn't the best, but look how far ahead I actually am of my ghost. Coming into the sweeping left, it's another one that I think was pretty good. I definitely could have gone to the green part a little bit more. And, I don't brake as hard coming into the hairpin, which I think was pretty good. And I'm still pretty good pace ahead of my ghost. Coming into this fast sweeping left was pretty good too. And the penultimate corner, I managed not to bin it. Probably almost did. Coming into the final corner, I'm doing pretty good. Get a good exit, get a good entrance. And going on the pit straight, I just need to bring it home, and it's personal best of 123.6, which is actually as good as it got, because on the very next lap, I was a second down on my Ghost. And then coming into the swooping left, I just take a little too much speed and I'm off in the gravel trap. But, on my very final attempt, I showed that I am at least consistent and at least improved, because on the next one it was a 123.7, which is pretty good race pace, or quality pace, I mean. Because if you're able to set down laps close to your personal best, shows that, at least consistency. And with that, the 123.6 actually puts me on pole, which I'm not that big of a fan of because my race pace is garbage. And starting on pole is not something I'm really used to, as I'm usually around 6th or 7th. So I don't really have that much experience with controlling the race pace. And also when you start at first, you usually have to win the race too, because if you drop down, well, there's no positions to gain unless you could reclaim first. And if you don't, it usually takes a hit to your driver rating a little. And also, I just barely reached the C lobbies, as you can tell with the D drivers in here, so I'm not trying to go back. So onto the grid lineup, you can see me on front with my quadrant livery, and it's a rolling start as always. And we're off with the rolling start, and the trash talking starts right away as the person behind me, Poison Snap, says they're faster than me, even though I'm the one on pole and they're not. So I don't know what you mean by that, when I'm obviously the faster driver. So since it's my first race here, I don't really know the strategy. I don't know how much fuel saving I need to do. I open up my radar though going into at the race start, because everyone knows of the first lap chaos or first turn chaos, which we'll get into later. So going in, he's not in my radar, but he's like half a second behind me. So going in to the Andretti hairpin, he goes deep, as you can see. He immediately tries to go for the dive down the inside or something, but it wasn't close enough to make it stick. Going in, I don't get the best exit. As you can see, he's already going into the side, so I have to start going a little defensive. I give him space on the inside, maybe a little bit too much. And looking at my fuel map, no fuel saving needs to be done, as he goes around the outside, contact almost being made as he immediately starts putting the pressure on me on the very first lap. And coming into this one, I managed to, I think I was a bit faster on him on that one, as it's now a half a second. Going into the hairpin, this is a really hit or miss for me, as more often than not during races, I go a bit too deep, as you see right there, and it immediately brings the gap down. And, he goes down the inside, I went down on the outside, didn't get the best. I try to go back down the inside, it doesn't work, and off he goes. And just like that, before the first lap even ends, I've already lost first place. So I spend the next couple of laps trying to chase him down, not really gaining on him, but not really falling behind, at least until here, where I don't really get the best, so it goes up to a second. But something really weird happens the next lap, and he just completely stops. So now I'm back in the lead with at least a 2.2 second lead and counting. So all I have to do is just drive and bring it home to first. So my pit strategy was, I started on the medium, so I was going to pit around near either the end of the 6th lap or the 7th lap. But of course, me being me, carry too much speed into the corner, lose the rear, try to correct it, overcorrect it, and I'm off to meet my fate. And I try to rejoin the track after hitting the barrier, and upon rejoining, I rejoin at 6th. That covered, now 7th, as 6th is just taken from me. So ultimately what this is now is just a recovery drive, which shouldn't be too bad. It's only the 3rd lap out of 14, which means there's about 10, 11 laps to go, and we still had to make the pit stop. So theoretically, as I go too deep into the corkscrew, I could make these positions back in the pit stop. So my switched my pit strategy up on the fly. So instead of pitting on the 6th or 7th lap, I was going to try to do an undercut and pit on the 5th lap. So going into the last corner, I get a slightly better exit of the Brazilian ahead of me, and before you know it, I'm in that also coveted 6th position. So not long after, I catch up to 5th and 4th. It looks like they're having a pretty tense battle. Then suddenly out of nowhere, the Canadian in 4th turns right on a straight, which is something I personally wouldn't do. But who am I to question a GOAT such as Brownie? And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, I am back in the race as I am in 5th with 4th less than a second in front of me. And I don't know, guys, something is telling me that I'm a little bit quicker than the person in 4th. So here we are again on the straight, and just like that, I'm in 4th. So 3rd is actually 6 seconds ahead of me, and I definitely have to find some, dig down deep and find some pace if I want to close that gap. But ladies and gentlemen, if you would look at the upper left screen, I'm on lap 5, which means my pit window is now open if I want to do an undercut, since most people usually just pit at half race distance, which would be around lap 6 going into lap 7. But to be honest with you guys, I was not expecting to be all the way up here, especially so quickly. So I was considering pitting at either the end of lap 6 or during lap 7. But as you can see here, absolutely no grip as I get a pretty bad exit. So I threw that possibility quickly out of the window, even though 3rd was well within my sights. But then if you look further again, 3rd completely bends it out of nowhere, and I decided to stay out as I am now in 3rd on the podium, which was pretty crazy considering just 2 laps before I had met Mr. Barry R and was in 7th. So now I didn't know whether to pit at the end of the lap or at the end of the next lap, and especially when I took the corkscrew a little bit better, didn't go as deep, I had grip. So I was very much deciding on pitting at the end of the next lap, especially when I saw that the person in 1st just went into the pits. So I decided to just go for an overcut and just get a free position and pit the next lap, which proves to be a pretty big mistake, as going out of the final corner, I just go too deep as I have no grip at all. And it was at that moment where I realized I probably should have pitted. Well, too late now, as now I have track position on 2nd, and with the leader being about 8 to 9 seconds ahead of me, I knew the race win was not going to be possible. Maybe earlier if I had just pitted with the undercut, but as it stood, I knew I was not going to win the race. But then suddenly later that lap, the race leader goes off, and now out of nowhere, I find myself in 1st. So now I had to make a split-second choice. Either pit at the end of this lap or test my skills and try to extend it to the next lap. But then I remembered that just the lap before, I went too deep in the final corner. So I thought it'd be best to pit at the end of this lap, which is why I didn't really try to fight poison swap too much, as I was just gonna pit anyways. But maybe I should have fought him because we both pitted at the same time, which for some reason it never crossed my mind that he didn't pit either. So onto the hearts we go, and on pit exit, he is just slightly ahead of me, and I dropped down to 3rd, which is good considered I didn't lose that many positions since everyone behind me also pitted. But it was also kind of frustrating because if I would have just fought him regardless, that could have been me in 2nd, but I'm in 3rd, which is still a good position, especially since I had dropped down to 7th. But since this was my first time on the hards driving this track with the car, I probably wouldn't have been able to keep second, as my pace just drops off completely on the hards as the person in second just flies off into the distance. So that was basically my race over, as I was just kind of struggling to come to grips, as the gap between me and second went from like 1 second to about 9. But interesting enough, I came upon something I have never came across before in GT7 or even GT Sport, and that was back markers. So after passing up the back marker in front of me on the very next lap, there wasn't that much after, and I ended up finishing the race in third, which isn't that bad because I still finished on the podium, and it could have been worse considering I did bin it and end up in 7th. So a pretty good result overall, but when you look at where I started, it isn't that good, on paper at least. So before getting into the next race, I just wanted to show you my custom, but not that custom, quadrant outfit. It has my number on it, 14. No really deeper meaning behind it. I did take some liberties with the sponsors, like the McLaren badge on it, the logo. I just thought it'd be funny, and then put Brisks on it because it was, they're pretty good. And I didn't design the helmet because I can't design helmets at all. I'm pretty terrible at it. So let's just look at a quick replay of the race-defining moment where it cost me first. Just completely carrying too much speed, clipping the dirt, and that was it. I was off with a date with the barrier. Truly biblical scenes right here in full play as we see it from the point of view from the driver behind me. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. You love to see it. So going into the next race, I decided to completely flip my strategy. Instead of starting on the mediums, I would start on the hards. So I was planning on going a little bit more longer on my stint before I pitted, because I was planning on pitting on around lap 8. And of course, another reason why it was so frustrating that I binned it was because it actually happened to me before, where I started off on pole 1 race, and then the next race they put me in a tougher lobby, so I started a bit more in the midfield. As you can see, I started 6th here, and as soon as the race started, the choice to start on hards completely backfired on me, as I miscalculate my braking distance, and I bump the person in front of me, and I lose 2 positions, and I'm now in 8th. But luckily, the person in 7th did end up getting a penalty, which allowed me to gain a position. And then not long after that, the person in 6th went off, and I was back in my rightful spot of 6th place. History is in the making right here, folks. Unfortunately, it would all go downhill from there, as in the next lap, in the exact same corner, I go a little too fast, and I find myself turning right on a straight. And this time, I do rack up a penalty, and I drop back down to 8th. Truly remarkable right there, ladies and gentlemen, with such skills to rival the GOAT himself. So with that little blunder, I completely second-guessed my strategy of extending my stint to the 8th lap, and was considering pitting at the end of this lap. And that's exactly what I did, even though everyone in front of me pitted, but I had a 1.5 second time penalty, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. I probably wouldn't have gained much positions. So coming out of the pit, I'm in 9th. I actually dropped 2 positions as I entered in 7th, but I ended up serving the pit after the first corner, which isn't as damaging as the end of the long straight, because you could just make that time back up in the corner. But since I'm on the medium now, I'm feeling a bit more confident to go more aggressive, especially at this moment here when someone disconnects, so I move up into 8th. So going into this fast sweeping left, I can tell that the person in front of me is on hards, as I have a huge pace advantage going into the course through, as I completely close that gap up with Jim Clark here apparently having no grip at all. And so with that, it leaves me open to be able to make a move on him, so I just move it down the inside and I move up in a 7th. And with person in 6th pitting, it puts me back in a 6th, so it appears Kazunori Yamauchi wants to put me in my place, I guess. So now I'm chasing down 5th. I'm not quite within slipstream range. I'm about a second behind, but I think I could pretty much close that gap since I usually always play on Laguna Seca, so I consider myself pretty decent at this track. And it doesn't take long for me to catch up to him, as I didn't try to go down for the move. I just try to get like really close to him. Here I might have considered going for the move, but I didn't want to risk hitting him. But you saw how close I got. But if you look at my time charts, you can see that my race pace is nowhere near as good as my quali pace. The reason for that is because I'm not really that much of a risk taker when it comes to like actual racing, because like if you go off or like do something wrong during a time trial or quali, you could just restart and race, as I just do like a pretty easy move, didn't even try to defend there. But like if you go off during a race like you did, you're gonna have to like make up the position, so I usually just play it safe, which is probably why I never win. Oh, and look at that, person in 6 just flies into the barrier to meet his fate with the Shadow Realm, and completely unforced error. I think he tried to like dive bomb down the inside or something, because I don't know, how does that even happen? So now I'm chasing down 4th. He's not that far ahead of me, but as you can see here, it all quickly goes south for him as he just goes a bit too deep and goes off into the gravel trap, which allows me to get right up there with him. So it appears my strategy to go from hard to medium is working, as he just goes deep as his tires have no grip, and there he goes off again into the barrier. So my strategy has worked, as I've gained 2 positions, and despite going off again, I managed to save my race. But that was basically the end of it, as the gap only grew bigger and bigger until it was about 25 seconds, while the gap to 3rd grew to about 12. So I was literally the best of the rest. So my rear left or rear right was actually almost dead, as you could tell, as I'm sledding. So I was just kind of like just trying to save him through the majority of the race. And with that, I still managed to increase the gap, but it was a pretty good race, better than the first one, because I actually managed to gain positions, and that was the only difference between the two. Because funnily enough, I did go off in both races. It also kind of helped that the skill gap between everyone, like from 4th and up, was completely different from behind me. But for the second race in a row, that was a pretty good result, as I didn't finish on the podium this time, but I finished 4th, and that was good enough for me. And my driver rating is looking pretty good because of it. So I caught it there for the day. I didn't get on until like a day or 2 later, and by then the new update had already come out, so the meta had completely changed. So I went from 6,600 rating to about 9,000. So apparently the new meta car was the RX3 Vision, which is a car I'm not too familiar with. So I just decided to go into it, and I completely forgot that in between, I didn't record it, but before the new update went out, I set another lap for another qualifying lap, and I got a 122.7. So it was pretty good. I was getting better at but I decided to do a quick lap without even looking at the times, the best times too much, just to get like a good template for like how fast I could improve. And I was not off to a very good start. which was a sign of things to come, as my first lap is 2.9 seconds off my personal best, which was pretty bad because I was actually trying, and I just completely lose the rear. So I knew this was probably not going to be fun. So after that mess, I decided to check the global rankings to see what time my dad's Super GT got, but unfortunately, he was mitigated to the shadow realm of global rankings, as it was his time from before the new update. So I just spent the next few minutes just trying to improve my lap time on the car, or on the track I mean, but I did get close with a 123.8, which was pretty good to the time I was getting close to the Porsche before the update, but I was still about like 1.1 second off my personal best, and I was really trying. I was doing everything, or like close to everything I was doing when I set the 122.7, but I could just not get the car to cooperate with me. So with my new time of 122.7, it put me into third, which was pretty fitting considering it was my third race. So for the strategy, I just decided to just do the medium to hard, considering I wasn't that comfortable with the car. So I was just going to try to like push as much as I can in the first stint. So here we are, final race, representing good old AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, and it's lights out and away we go, and immediately start trying to go on the offensive a bit as I go down the inside of second here, and I just overcook it, or I got rear-ended, which sent me straight into that guy, and immediately the chaos starts ensuing right out of turn one as penalties start getting racked up, collisions everywhere, the packs all jumbled up together, and I would go from third to eighth as I have no idea what happened. I should have just sped up right off after that racing incident, and so now there's nothing but dirty racers ahead of me that I'm now have to try to pass as I get rear-ended from the rear again, as this race is just, oh my goodness, just completely sideswiped into, which causes me to swipe that person. So I knew this was pretty rocky, and I'm completely surprised I did not get rear-ended going into the corkscrew. As you can see on the radar, there's like people fighting like behind us. I didn't notice at the time as someone just goes off behind me. So and then going into the final turn right here, you see the guy coming side to side. I leave the space, bumps me anyways, and now I'm down a position to eighth. Truly appalling. Truly I don't even know what to say, as oh my goodness, just completely rammed like face first into the barrier right there. Completely unprecedented, never seen anything like it before. Truly biblical scenes happening right in front of me, right here, live, right in front of your eyes, everyone. So I figured everyone's playing pretty dirty anyways, just completely send it up on the inside of this guy. There's a bit of contact there, and later on you can see on the radar someone just goes off into the gravel. Two people actually. Oh my goodness. No love lost today. It's just, oh look, just a bit more contact made. Oh look, fifth nearly loses it, just saves it in the nick of time, but not enough to where you could keep me at a distance. But wait, there's more, as oh my goodness, another person and another position gain, and another one as another one just goes too deep. Just like that, I am now in fourth, with third well within my sights, and looking for a top 5 finish third race in a row. Quadrant Lando. I'll be awaiting my letter in the mail. And not long after, third place goes off. And then there I go. And looking at I thought that would have been a bit more tougher. I was a bit scared because earlier in the race, I saw that Hot Wheels driver was not the cleanest racer. So I knew that I was going to have some trouble with him. So I tried to increase the gap between the two of us, especially since I was in third. And if you look into the distance, there is second place. So second could also be within my sights. Well, the pressure of being in front of not one, but two rammers, well, it started to get to me, as you could tell, as I keep looking back. And unfortunately, I made the mistake of switching to the front view cam because I could see the mirror, just in case he tried to make a move to ram me. And well, yeah, got a bit too nervous, got to me, got too hard, too fast on the power, and I ended up facing the wrong way. And that's pretty much where my race ended. It was pretty frustrating, especially since it looked like it would have been an easy P3 and maybe even possibly a P2. I did manage to make a few positions up since the driving was still absolutely horrendous here. Well, I could lie and say I pulled off another amazing recovery drive, but that just wasn't the case here, as you could see, as I completely lose the rear as the tires just don't want to work with me anymore. Unfortunately, it didn't get better as I got rammed. Well, like I said before, driving was horrendous, so I managed to gain a few positions, and I was actually going to make a joke when I was in third that I walked away from all that carnage in the first lap completely scot-free. The only thing I got from that was content, and well, now I'm in last and near the back of the pack. So I just decided to come into the pit at the end of the sixth lap, and I just came out in 13th and last. And at this point, I'd have already sent my own mind to the shadow realm and basically just threw out any chances of actually winning the race or getting a decent position. So I was just trying to just finish it and just bring the car home so I wouldn't hurt my driver rating that bad. Well, things weren't that bad as I managed to pass one person in the pit and managed to get past this person right here. And then person in 10th went off. So it wasn't that bad. I wasn't finishing in last at least. So I was getting a little bit lucky, especially since I got 9th since that person went off. Someone went into the pits, so it was possible that I could have snatched at least 8th, which I did. But then 2 laps later, coming into the Andretti hairpin, someone just completely dives bombs me. Again, with the driving being horrendous, despite it being a C lobby. And then coming into this fast sweeping corner, completely sideswiped, but prevented from completely facing the wall because I got rammed again, ironically enough. And I was basically just clocked out at this point. Because I had gone from 8th to 9th all the way back to 11th due to no fault of my own. Because everyone here was basically dirty drivers here throughout the whole lobby basically. And to give you an idea for how dirty it was, coming into the Andretti hairpin, someone has gone off, contact made between 10th and 9th. Again, no penalty awarded. And despite all this, there hasn't been that many penalties. Even in the lap 1 collision, no penalty given at all except for one guy. So I decided to just ram the person out because I had just given up. And of course, I got a 2-second time penalty. So I was basically mentally done with the race because at this point I went from about 4th or 3rd all the way to last, just to move up to a pretty good position to get bumped and rammed all the way back to last. And at this point, I had like no grip whatsoever, so I went too deep, tried to get back on the track as carefully as possible, ended up just spinning around. So I just decided to call it quits, which pretty much sucks, especially when I was in a pretty good chance with the race win there, or at the very least a good result. So that was it for me. I didn't do another race at all for the rest of the week. I was basically like done, didn't want to do anymore. So yeah, that was it. Just wanted to switch things up for a bit, just get a break from the Left 4 Dead 2 videos. So let me know what you guys think, if I should just do live commentary instead of like commentating over. But yeah, that's it. See ya.